Hi guys, I'm Adam, backstage here at WCPW with the new General Manager of WCPW, soon to be Defiant, Stu Bennett. Stu, great to chat to you, great to have you here at WCPW.
What a pleasure to be here, what a great company it is too, and what an amazing night we had last night at Refuse to Lose.
Absolutely great to have you back, as I say. A lot of people excited obviously about you taking over as General Manager. What was one of the key things that made you want to be involved with WCPW? Obviously you've done stuff in the past, you've got experience of working with us, but why did you want to take on this General Manager role?
Well, I've had a bit of a break from the pro wrestling industry. I really needed it. I was a little upset with some things going on across the pond, but I came over in, I think it was April now. I did a bit of a speaking tour across the UK. Fans come along here and me tell stories about my career. Great fun. And at the end of that, WCPW approached us and say, hey, we want you to come along and do some commentary. We've got a couple of shows coming up. They tag on right at the very end of your tour, and I was like, okay, I always enjoy doing commentary, why not, let's see what's going on. I've heard a lot about WCPW, never seen them before, let me go check it out. So I was here anyway, I checked it out, and I was blown away by the quality of the shows, the kind of performance they were getting on there, the level of wrestling and the level of production, and they treated me great too. So I was like, okay, these guys are clearly doing something right here. And I contrasted that with when I started out in the wrestling industry in the UK. It was just a disaster all around. Like the British indie scene was an awful place to be. The quality of talent was really low. The quality of production was even worse, and there just wasn't this kind of thing. There was nothing like WCPW. So I was thrilled that the guys now are able to make a career, a full-time career working as wrestlers through companies like WCPW, and also the fact that the quality of product that you guys are putting out is an alternative to what's being broadcast on TV globally. So you now have options to watch a British product that is such a high standard. So I thought, you know what, they're doing such good work over there. I'd love to be back involved in some capacity. Maybe not in the ring quite yet, maybe one day, but when this role came up, I was like, I've got to take it. I've got to get back involved with them.
And you mentioned obviously all the wrestlers, you mentioned that when you were talking about that Refuse to Lose, but also another thing you were really excited about and mentioned quite a lot as well was the fans and the fan reaction. How was that experiencing that coming out and making the announcement at Refuse to Lose?
Yeah, coming out was great. I mean, I always knew that coming out at the beginning of the show, the crowd is hot, because let's face it, at the beginning of a show, they haven't seen anything yet, or they've seen a couple of Dar matches, but they want to see some action, they want to see personalities, they want to see this, that, and the other. Oh, great, here's it, let's all cheer, let's all get on our feet. And it was cool, and they gave me an amazing response. I hate to say it, I hate to be arrogant, I expected it. And they were great. What impressed me more than anything, though, is that Refuse to Lose in total went about 3.5 hours. And I know from past experience, I've wrestled 1,000 matches, over 1,000 matches in my career. I know that crowds get tired after about 2 hours. Sometimes quicker than that if the show isn't good. But after 2 hours, no matter how good the show is, everyone's getting tired now. People start looking at their watches, want to go home. I'm like that in the cinema. As soon as we hit 2 hours in a film, I'm done. Like, finish up, guys. And if it's a long one, I'm bored. But like, I came out to referee the commentate on the main event, which was a good 3 hours into the show at this point, and the crowd were louder than ever. They just built and built and built, and that kind of response from a crowd tells me the level of emotional investment they have in the product and the matches, and I was blown away by that. That was the single most impressive thing for me about last night, was how they kept that level of intensity from their audience perspective throughout the show, and it tells me something's going right and it's something very special.
Now, looking forward, as the General Manager, you said yourself, even before you came here, you're looking to make a few changes. What with your experience at WCPW and obviously what we've seen happen over the months and years with the Prestige, are you already sort of planning and making matches and stuff like that already in your head?
Yeah, I've got a ton of ideas. I'm not going to come here and tell you that I have a problem with guys like the Prestige. I know for a fact that the WCPW fans are not huge fans of the Prestige and their ways. They can respect the individuals there, but I get it. They're cheats, they're nasty, they pull dirty tricks. You know what? I've made an entire career on that. I'm the last guy who should be coming out here and saying they're doing wrong, that they shouldn't be behaving like that. And I'm not going to punish them for that, because I would be a hypocrite. But I also see different directions for the company, both on camera and behind the scenes, and there's a lot of things going on over the next few months that the fans aren't going to know about yet, and they will eventually find out about, but there is big things in store for WCPW, or shall we say Defiant Wrestling.
Yes, exactly. Really nice moment at the end of Refuse to Lose with you and Marty, and congratulating him. Are there any other wrestlers that you maybe have caught your eye since you've been here?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's a guy like Rampage Brown, who I know pops up on on our shows quite a lot. He's a guy I'm a huge fan of. I've known him for years and years. Back when I was working on the indie scene in the UK, prior to going to the US, he was about, and he was catching my eye already. And he's a guy who 100% should be main eventing everywhere he goes. And on top of that, of course, Martin Kirby's a real mainstay here. Travis Banks is another one that I've been really impressed with. He's been catching a lot of people's eyes, and he's a guy who's going to go places for sure. So, I mean, there's a ton of guys out there. Everybody's got something different. Everybody's offering something different, and I can see some people making a big step up now. We've got a new GM here.
Yeah, and you've got a great deal of experience, obviously, within the industry. You yourself have worked underneath a variety, let's say, of general managers in the past. Is there any ways that they worked that you're going to sort of cherry pick and utilise yourself, or is it going to be your own? You're your own general manager.
I think the best thing about the pro wrestling world is no matter who your trainer is, who your coach is, you take the very best parts of what they've done, be it, you know, John Ritchie when I was out in the UK, or you know, Al Snow, or Dusty Rhodes, Norman Smiley, Dr. Tom Pritchard, all these guys I worked with when I was coming through. Or on top of that, you've got guys like Dean Malenko, Arn Anderson, Vince McMahon himself, Triple H, guys who I've taken their best parts and got rid of their bad parts, and hopefully that makes an even better guy in myself. So I'm going to be taking the best of what I've worked with, getting rid of the bad stuff, and hopefully that makes me a fantastic general manager.
Let's talk a little bit more about you. Obviously, we know your history. Now, with living out in the USA and travelling back and forth, is there elements of England that you miss? I know you said when you came back you were tweeting about fish and chips. Is it that simple?
You know, the weird thing is, right, when I lived in the UK, I didn't even like fish and chips. And now I go away and I come back, and I'm great with my diet normally. I'm very strict on what I eat and stuff like that. Apart from beer, I'll drink as much beer as I want because, okay, that's my one thing.
Okay.
But when I come back, I always say, okay, I'm going to have one fish and chips when I'm back, just because I'm British. And I have that one fish and chips, and then I need to eat it every single day after that. It's like, I don't know what happened to me being over there. I now love fish and chips just when I come home. So, yeah, I miss that. I miss having the football on TV all the time. You can get it out there in the US, but it's not as pervasive as it is here. It's not like everybody's talking about it, or every newspaper or every news channel is covering it. So I miss that. I miss going to the pub. I mean, an old man's pub is where I am made to be. I'm not made in these, you know, these fancy bars, these wine bars or nightclubs with loud music. That's not me. I like an old man's pub, sitting there with a beer, with the mates, just having a chat. And there's nothing like that in the US because they don't have the history, they don't have the old buildings, and they're all like, all their old man pubs are all custom built to kind of replicate what it is in the UK, and it never works, and they always do awful fish and chips, and it's just rotten. So there's a lot, and of course my family too, I've mentioned that. I'd be pretty angry if I didn't.
So stocking up on fish and chips, pork scratchings, pork pies, cups of tea.
There we go.
Right.
Boddingtons too. Boddingtons and Newcastle Brown Ale. Those are the two drinks that you can get them in the US, but you usually have to pay like 5 times the price. Like, I was in LA a few weeks ago, and I met an old buddy there, and he's a Scottish guy, and we got to some pub, and they had Boddingtons, but it was in cans. So I was like, okay, great, we'll have a few cans of Boddingtons. I think they had like 4 or 5 each, and I was like, yeah, no problem, I'll get the bill, because he was visiting. So I ended up paying 10 quid a can for cans of Boddingtons, 10 quid each, and I was like, man, that gives me 24 in the UK. So that's what you deal with when you're out there, but there we go.
Now, you mentioned earlier you've been away from the business obviously for a while. Your career change going into acting, it seems fairly obvious for you to go into something like that because there's a lot of transferable skills in what you used to do and what you do now. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, wrestling ultimately is entertainment. It's a little easier for a professional wrestler to move into other forms of entertainment than it is for, say, an MMA guy or a football player, a rugby player or something like that. They're very strict sportsmen. We're a mix of sports and entertainment. So, you know, just from the perspective of me going out in front of a crowd and cutting a 5-minute promo, or me doing a backstage skit with somebody, and, you know, it's essentially acting. And even when I'm in the ring and I'm beating a guy up, that isn't my normal personality. Hopefully people realise that my normal personality is slightly different to Bad News Barrett or something like that, snarling in the ring or whatever it is. There's a huge amount of emphasis in pro wrestling put on the entertainment aspect and being able to give a persona rather than just be your normal self, because for the most part, if you're your normal self in the world of wrestling, it's going to be pretty boring. So I think those skills that you develop over a 14-year career in pro wrestling are going to transfer incredibly well into other forms of entertainment.
And how much have you been enjoying it? Because I know you mentioned a lot when you stepped back from the business that you were keen to get more creativity, more control over your path next, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the great thing about acting is the kind of roles that I've done so far, and even TV hosting, which I've just started doing some of in LA. I get a lot more freedom to be me and deliver what I want. So I'm often given a blueprint of a character. Hey, this guy needs to walk into here, beat these 3 guys up, and then, shoot the helicopter, for example. But that's all I'm given. The rest, I'm filling in myself. Whereas I felt, certainly in my last couple of years in wrestling, it was, okay, you need to go in the ring, have a match with this guy for 6 minutes, and then say these words. I wasn't given any latitude to be me or get that character over. It was very much, no, hit these points, do this here, don't deviate at all from this exact path that you need to take. And as someone who sees himself as a performer, as I think most wrestlers do, that really is a career killer for us because it takes away my passion for what I'm doing. So to be able to have some freedom to develop characters in my own style is certainly something I crave in this day and age.
Now your IMDb page is growing rapidly with all the different projects that you're working on. Is there any things that you still want to achieve, like people you want to work with, or I don't know, maybe something that people wouldn't necessarily expect you to be involved with?
Do you mean from the perspective of professional wrestling, or? I mean, certainly in professional wrestling, there's a lot I want to do. I mean, commentary is something I love, and I got to do some more with What Culture, Refuse to Lose, which I love doing. Certainly even getting back in the ring at some point, there's that itch that is still there, and it will always be there. I'll be a 70-year-old man, and I'll be thinking about getting back in the ring. So when the right opportunity comes up and it meets the right point in my life for me to be doing something like that, 100% I'll take it. So I'm going to be back in the ring at some point. I just don't know quite when it's going to be. And I'll be pretty sure it's going to be in a What Culture ring or a Defiant wrestling ring, shall we say.
And in terms of acting projects, looking forward?
100%. I mean, I've got some stuff on the go. I just signed with a new agent in LA, which is great. I've had my one in London, but now I've got somebody out in the US working for me too. So there's a ton of stuff I feel I can go into there. The cool thing about acting for me is that I've done 4 movies now, but I feel like I felt in my first year in pro wrestling where there's so much I need to learn, rather than it feeling like Groundhog Day, which is kind of how things felt towards the end of WWE. It feels like every day a new project's getting sent in, and I never thought about a comedy role before, or how about this? Hey, we want to speak to this guy about this TV role. There's so much stuff happening, so much possibility that I'm never sure what's going to really take off next, or what we're going to go with next. And it's a very exciting time for me to have this new kind of wave of excitement coming in every day. So.
Well, it's a very exciting time for you. It is an even more exciting time for us to have you here as our general manager. I know you've said before that you miss the locker room, and obviously being involved in any capacity like you've had must be really nice to just get back involved with the guys, I suppose, even though you're their boss.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a lot of things I don't miss about wrestling. There's a reason why I left WWE, and there's a lot of bad that I was experiencing there, but in terms of the stuff I miss the fans, and I miss being in the locker room with the guys and chatting to the guys and kind of being on the road again. So there's a ton here for me in What Culture that I'm really excited to be back around. So it's great to be back around that environment, and the kind of atmosphere and the attitude of the performers in What Culture is probably the best locker room I've ever seen in terms of them pulling together and positivity and guys looking to help each other out, and none of the backstabbing that you perhaps associate with certain locker rooms. It's great to be in that environment and everyone pulling together to make this company the best British company we can.
Well, Stu, it is great to have you here. Exciting times, looking forward to Defiant Wrestling. But have you here right now as WCPW General Manager. We're just so excited. Can't wait to see what happens next. Stu Bennett, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and don't forget, we are Defiant.